I'm in my 30s. I am a 29-year-old male. I have an older brother who is 32 years old and a sister who is 27 years old. My parents are close to 60 years old. The shortest background I can give is that when I was a child, my parents had to juggle between working, raising us, and somehow finding a bit of time for themselves. Being the middle child, it was the typical situation where I was too young for some things and too old for others. My dad took on a greater role in being present for my brother, and my mom did the same with my sister, so I usually ended up with whichever parent was free, or tagging along with the one who had an activity with one of my siblings that was closer to my age. Other times, I had to rely on a relative or family friend. In general, it was fine. It wasn't like they neglected me. It's just that, being the one who got passed around, I didn't develop a special bond like my brother has with my dad or my sister has with my mom. Of course, there were moments when it hurt a little not to have that, but as a kid, you adapt and get used to it. I grew more independent. Of course, there were some times when I tried to be better than my siblings to see if I could get more attention, and other times I acted out for the same reason, but nothing ever changed. One day, at around 12 years old, I just got tired of the situation and decided to focus on doing the things I liked. A benefit of being the middle child is that you fly a bit more under your parents' radar. So as a kid, I had a fair share of adventures. At the end of the day, my story isn't different from that of many other middle children. Some empty seats at events, some half-forgotten birthdays that were saved at the last minute with a store-bought cake. Perhaps the hardest thing was that a semester before graduating from high school, when I was preparing everything to go to college, my dad and I had a conversation where he explained to me that finances were tight and they had spent a significant amount of their savings to pay for my brother's college and housing. He was in another city, so he didn't think he could afford to pay for mine. He said we should look for other financing options and that later on, he would help me. Used to fending for myself, I got a job as a cashier in a store during the week, waited tables on weekends, and applied for a student loan. From then on, I didn't stop working until I graduated college. All the money went toward paying the loan's interest. When I graduated, I was exhausted, and the worst was yet to come. Paying off the massive loan, I tightened my belt and, over the last 5 years, did everything possible to pay it off. Overtime, side projects, and nearly 4 months ago, I finally finished paying it. The first thing I did wasn't to celebrate or anything. Instead, I only worked the required hours for the next month and spent the rest of my time sleeping. Maybe I was a little depressed or it was just exhaustion. When the month passed, I got my paycheck, and for the first time, I saw money left in my account. My mood changed. I felt much better, fulfilled in a way. Now I only had to work for my future. The first thing I did was celebrate with my family. I invited them to a nice restaurant, and when dessert came, I paused, asked for their attention, and told them that today I was celebrating with the most important people in my life because I had finally finished paying off my student loan. And that's when it all went to hell. My siblings had no idea that my parents hadn't paid for my studies. My mom went silent, and my dad looked ashamed, with an expression that was both sad and embarrassed. My dad told me, with a look of regret, to come over to the house during the week and that he would keep his promise to pay me back. It felt like I'd had a bucket of cold water thrown on me. My siblings had a look of guilt because I was the only one who had to rely on a loan to study. My celebration, my achievement, overshadowed, not a congratulations or a we're proud of you, just an I'll pay you back, followed by an uncomfortable silence. Needless to say, dessert didn't taste good, and the dinner ended on a strange note. The walk to the parking lot wasn't any different. Over the next month, I didn't go to my parents' house, and communication was minimal. Eventually, my sister visited me to talk about it. At first, I didn't want to talk, but her persistence won me over, and finally, the words started to come out. Everything, the little oversights, the lack of a bond, the empty chairs, and many other things, always clarifying that I love my parents, but it hurts that even this time, they couldn't congratulate me and feel proud of me, that my reason for celebrating was a reason for their shame, and I'm hurt by that. I told her I needed some time to process things before going back to family lunches and other activities we used to do. A couple of weeks later, I went to the family lunch, and things got awkward. My parents were overly interested in my life. They were overcompensating, with compliments coming nonstop, which quickly started to annoy me, and I asked them to stop the show and go back to how things were before. My mom told me she was sorry and that they were trying to make things right. I explained that there was nothing to fix, that our relationship is what it is, that there's nothing wrong with it, and that trying to change it now feels pointless and makes me uncomfortable. My siblings tried to lighten the mood, but I think this is something we need to take slowly and let things return to normal on their own. Anyway, my 30th birthday is around the corner, and I just found out that my family is planning a big party with friends and family. For 29 years, all my celebrations have been small. Why would I want a big social event now? It's too much. I spoke with my dad and told him to stop, that our relationship is what it is, and honestly, this new, extra loving and involved parents angle isn't natural. I asked them to please cancel the party and just have something small, just the 5 of us. And if my siblings want, they can bring their partners, but nothing more. Now my parents are sad, my brother is uncomfortable, and my sister is angry because I'm not letting them fix things. Damn, they're a bit late, like 20 years late. I love my family, but the relationship they now want to have with me isn't my thing. Besides, I feel like they're doing it more for themselves to feel better, rather than for me. Anyway, that's how things are in my life right now. I'm just venting my thoughts. I don't expect a magical solution. Feel free to share your thoughts. Can you think of any way to get things back to how they were? Best regards. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. So did they pay you back? They could only afford to pay for your younger sibling's education because they didn't pay for yours. Middle shouldn't mean disregarded. Your parents shouldn't be trying to make things right by gushing over you. They should be trying to make things right financially. You won't get your time back for working hard for those 5 years, but they should give you something. Apologies accepted in the form of cash only. Also, this situation isn't your siblings' business, so they shouldn't be involved. I would remind them of that. Sorry for your situation. It sucks, and you deserve better. I hope you have a solid group of friends or a significant other to make up the difference. Comment 2. First, I am proud you just took care of your life. Paying off student loans is an accomplishment, as well as earning your degree. I am so sorry for your position. Stick up for what you are comfortable with. I would go low contact and just create a life out of friends, acquaintances, and eventually your own family. Learn from it when you have children. Let them be. Often, those who struggle are the ones that make good. Where is the money they promised you? Let them move away from you. I am angry for you. Now, for the update, I'm posting the update to this thread. A few weeks after my family lunch, I got a text from my sister about my parents' plans for my birthday. Apparently, they decided to throw me a surprise party with the entire family and friends at a banquet hall. Yeah, I was really thrilled about that idea. I immediately responded to my sister with a firm no, not even a question mark at the end, just no. She followed up with, "Come on, it's your 30th birthday. You deserve something special." I don't know how many times I had to explain to them, but all I wanted was a quiet little dinner with my parents, my siblings, and my brother's wife. Like, is that so hard to understand? My parents pushed back like I was the one being unreasonable. They insisted that I deserved a big celebration. They were really stuck on this idea that I needed to be the center of attention or something. Like, no thanks. I'm okay over here in my little introvert bubble. I insisted on a quiet dinner with just my immediate family, but no. My parents were disappointed over my lack of enthusiasm. They just couldn't get why I didn't want to party. It got worse during a phone call with my dad, who casually mentioned that they had already booked the hall and sent out invitations. What the hell? Like, what the actual hell? You can't just go ahead and do that. You're throwing a surprise party for someone who specifically said no to the surprise party. That's like a basic rule in surprise parties. A week before my birthday, I found out from my sister that she was working on a video montage for the party. I asked her to stop working on it. I told her again, I don't want this, but she was like, it's supposed to be a surprise. I just want it to be special for you. I was like, yeah, well, you're going to have to find some other way to make it special because I don't want this. On the night of my birthday, my sister called me up and asked me to come home for dinner. I was like, okay, whatever. I went home reluctantly, and then we all drove to the banquet hall together. I was just thinking, what the heck? I don't want to be here. I don't want to celebrate. I just want to go home and not deal with any of this. I walk in and the place is filled with family and friends. My parents were so happy to see me. I mean, I guess that's great and all, but I wasn't exactly feeling the love. The hall was decorated with balloons and banners and everything. My older brother Jake pulled me aside to talk about the party and the effort they put into it. He was like, "We really wanted to do something special for you, man. I appreciate it, but no thanks. I don't want this." During our conversation, Jake mentioned that he and Rachel were having some issues. That surprised me. I was like, what? He didn't go into detail, but I could tell it was bothering him. As the night went on, I overheard a heated discussion between my parents. Yeah, the place was packed with people, and here are my parents arguing. They were arguing about finances. My dad was saying something about how they had to take out a loan to pay for the party. What? They never planned to disclose this to me. I just had to find out on my own. I confronted my parents about this loan while my guests stood by, confused. My mom was like, "We just wanted to make you happy. It was worth it." I don't even know what to say about that. Seriously? You think taking out a loan is worth it to make me happy? The atmosphere in the hall changed instantly. Guests started to become aware of the fact that there was something going on between me and my parents. Outside, I ran into Rachel. She looked distressed. She confided in me that she felt pressured to maintain a perfect image for the family. We had a good laugh about the absurdity of it all. Who knew something so ridiculous could be so funny? A few days later, I got a call from my brother. He revealed that Rachel was pregnant again. I was shocked. I knew the pressure on her would only increase. We agreed to meet for coffee, where my sister expressed her own frustrations about the family dynamics. She was just as fed up as I was. I offered to help her with the video montage. I figured it was a good way for us to bond a little. We decided to explore our shared experiences growing up. I also decided to confront my parents about the loan and their decisions regarding my birthday. Yeah, that went over well. The situation escalated when they refused to acknowledge the impact of their choices. I'm planning to meet with my siblings to open up a dialogue about our family situation. I'm not sure where it's going to lead, but we need to talk about it. Edit. A few guests at the party were aware of the family dynamics and expressed their support. My sister-in-law, Rachel, mentioned feeling pressured to maintain a perfect image for the family, which led to a heartfelt conversation. My siblings and I discussed our shared experiences, and we agreed to meet for an honest talk about our family situation. Am I the idiot for flying across the world to catch my boyfriend in a lie about our open relationship? My boyfriend, a 26-year-old of 4 years, has recently started a new job as a navigational officer on a large American cruise line. This has been a dream of his, and I really want to be supportive, especially considering the many years of university he has gone through working towards this dream. He will work on board for a few years and then get a shore job to make it easier in case we want to have a family. We have lived together for 3 years and have always had an amazing and supportive relationship. He has been in university studying to be a maritime officer since before we got together, and I have always felt completely fine about him working at sea one day. It gives me the freedom to move anywhere my career brings me, and that's something that I value greatly. I'm finishing graduate school, and we live in the country where he grew up. We both want the same things in the future and have always been great at communicating our wants and needs. I know he is saving for an engagement ring, and up until a few weeks ago, I was sure I would say yes when the day came. Neither of us has expressed any interest in having an open relationship. On the contrary, he has been quite explicit in how he does not want that kind of relationship. Now that you have a bit of background information, We get to a few weeks ago. 4 weeks into his first contract, he tells me that he feels like he is missing out on parts of his 20s and that he wants to be able to experience that fully. He wants an open relationship on both sides while he is on board and a closed one when he is home. He made it very clear that if this was not something that I felt comfortable with, he would not ask again, and we could just not do it. He claims that our relationship is the most important to him and that he would never want this to ruin what we have. While I appreciate this, I truly feel that this is one of those questions that once asked, there is only one possible answer. If I had said no, I would still have to live with the fact that I am in a relationship with someone who is not satisfied in that relationship. That's why I decided that I had to say yes, despite feeling the opposite. He knows how I feel about it and that I am struggling to accept the situation. I think his want for this might come from the culture on board, as I've heard that they have a huge hookup culture and that cheating or work-wife relationships are very common. My boyfriend has always been easily influenced by the people around him and has a huge need to fit in, for better and for worse. This has affected my confidence, my view of myself, and my relationship. I can't sleep, eat, or focus on my work. I'm not able to let it go. I feel resentment that this is something he wants. But at the same time, I don't want to let this one thing ruin something that is so amazing in every other way. Can I do anything to save this relationship? Do I need to let him experience this cruise culture for a bit and try to focus on other things? Or do I need to break this off? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He wants to lock you down and still fool around because of fear of missing out. You shouldn't handle this. You break up with the wannabe player. He thinks there is someone better than you and that he is missing out on because he's with you. Why would you ever entertain this, especially at 25? What happens if one of his harem members shows up pregnant? How regularly is he going to test for sexually transmitted diseases, and is he paying for your testing? Because I wouldn't touch that person or his private parts. No telling what diseases he'll bring home. Comment 2. If he's not already cheating, he at least has someone in mind that he wants to be with. The way this will most likely play out is that he'll have his fun, that person will eventually tire of him, and then he'll want to come back to you like nothing ever happened. Don't let yourself be his second or third or fifth choice. Now, for the update. A few days after my boyfriend brought up the open relationship thing, he left for his first cruise. I was still trying to figure out if I was okay with it or not. Anyway, before he left, he was all about keeping in touch and updating me regularly. He kept saying how important it was for us to stay connected while he was out at sea. At first, it felt sincere. The first week passed, and we were texting and video calling every day. Everything seemed normal, like nothing was different. Then came the second weekend. I went to my parents' house for dinner because I hadn't seen them in a while. My parents were all excited to hear about my boyfriend's new job. They kept asking about the cruise and how he felt about being out at sea. I mentioned the whole open relationship discussion just to clarify things. My mom raised an eyebrow but didn't say much. My dad, on the other hand, seemed really supportive. Typical dad. My younger sister, Mia, and her boyfriend were there too. They both joked about being young and free. It was all fun and games until that point. Later that night, I went to the kitchen to help my mom clean up. As we were washing the dishes, she brought up a conversation she had with her friend about relationships. She mentioned that her friend's daughter had a similar situation, and it ended badly. I just brushed it off, thinking it wouldn't apply to me. I mean, my boyfriend loved me, right? What could go wrong? I went home later that night, and I got a text from my boyfriend saying he was busy with work. I thought nothing of it. The following week, things started to change. He stopped messaging as much. He was sending these generic updates about work, but nothing personal. I felt something was off, but tried to ignore it. One night, I decided to call him, but he didn't answer. That was unusual. The next evening, I went to a local bar with some friends for trivia night. I needed a break from all my worries. While I was there, I ran into an old high school friend, Sarah. We started chatting, and she mentioned she had seen my boyfriend on social media. I was surprised. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo of him with a group of people on a beach. He looked so carefree. But what caught my attention was this woman who was very close to him in the photo. I didn't recognize her at all. I decided to leave the bar early and texted my boyfriend about the photo. He replied, saying it was just a work event and nothing to worry about. But I did worry. A few days later, I visited my brother's house for a family BBQ. My brother mentioned hearing about a party on the cruise ship. He joked about wild parties and how people let loose at sea. I didn't laugh. That night, I got a message from Sarah, who sent me more photos from the beach. In one of the photos, I could clearly see the woman with my boyfriend hugging him. I felt sick. I decided to confront him about it directly. I asked him who she was. He assured me she was just a friend from work. Just a friend. I told him I wasn't comfortable with the situation and that I felt disrespected. He got all defensive, saying I was overreacting and that I should trust him. In a moment of frustration, I told him I couldn't continue like this. He shot back by saying maybe an open relationship was the best idea after all. That stung. I thought about it for a bit, and then I decided to book a last-minute trip to surprise him on the cruise. I packed my bags and booked a ticket to the cruise port. When I got to the terminal, I felt a rush of adrenaline. It was now or never. I boarded the ship and started searching for my boyfriend. I found him at a lounge, laughing with the woman from the photos. I walked up to them, and the woman looked shocked. My boyfriend froze when he saw me. His face went pale. I calmly introduced myself, saying I heard he was having fun at sea. The atmosphere turned awkward, and I could see the panic in his eyes. The woman excused herself, and I turned to my boyfriend with a determined look. All those doubts, all those sleepless nights trying to figure out what to do, and here we were. To answer a few questions, my boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years, living together for 3. He brought up the open relationship idea just before he started his job, and this change in him made me anxious. I felt the cruise culture influenced his request. My parents had mixed reactions to his request, and my dad generally supports my relationships. The woman in the photos turned out to be a coworker, and he claims nothing happened between them. Am I the idiot for calling out my husband's lies after catching him with another woman while pregnant? We've been married for over 3 years and are expecting our first child. It wasn't an accident. He has been really eager to have a family and does everything, such as building a new house, buying everything for the baby, making sure I'm feeling all right, and fulfilling all his husband duties. But he's the type of guy who likes to party on the weekends, and I allow him to go out with his friends. I think it's totally fine because he works hard, and clubbing is his way to relax and do some networking with his mates. I used to go with him occasionally, so it's not like he's keeping me at home. It's just that during pregnancy, it's hard for me to tolerate all the noise, and honestly, we already spend enough time together. I'm not a jealous type. I also have the freedom to do and be myself, so our relationship is built on trust and respect. Yesterday, on Friday night, he went out. He said he was going to meet with the car mechanic and would come back. So I didn't sleep and waited at home for him since he didn't mention any other plans. Time went by, and I realized it was already 3 a.m. and there was no word from him. I didn't want to call him to seem controlling, but after half an hour, I decided to give him a call, but there was no answer. When he didn't call back, I started getting worried and called again and again. There was no answer for about an hour during my attempts. That was when I got suspicious, so I went to his office, which is in our house. I knew he had his messenger on his desktop, so I opened it. There it was, a conversation with a girl right before he went out. Previously, they had talked about meeting that night, and she dropped a location where to pick her up. There was also a conversation before that where they were texting casually. It started from October 4th and seemed like he had deleted the previous chat. By looking at the dialogue, I can see it's not that deep, romantic, or intimate. It's not constant, and she's the one initiating conversations or meetings. They met for lunch once, and she texted him saying she missed him while he was out of town and that the club sucks without him being there. Nothing directly indicated anything intimacy, but I have no idea who that girl is, and she's my age, so it's definitely not just a friend, because he's 34 years old and she's 22. He also apparently paid for her nose job surgery, which means that him financially helping her indicates something is definitely off. Finally, he returned my call and said, "My phone was on silent on the table and I didn't hear you calling. I was at the club. Sorry it happened spontaneously, but I was with my friends." I was upset on a completely different level. I confronted him about everything without telling him I checked his messenger. Since I wasn't providing any evidence, he just kept lying that he went to the mechanic, then met with his friend, and then went to the club. He sent me screenshots of transactions confirming that he was indeed at the club. He knew I was still upset and felt guilty, so he came home and stayed in the office, sleeping on the couch without even facing me. I didn't want to see him because I'd just lose it and say or do something I'd regret. In the morning, I went out and met with a friend for breakfast. It was already planned, and I didn't want to cancel it. I hadn't mentioned anything, though. It is so embarrassing for me as a woman to end up in this situation of being cheated on while pregnant. It feels like one of my worst fears coming true. For the well-being of my baby, I'm trying not to stress out too much, but I also have no idea what to do. How can I cope with this? I clearly don't want a divorce right now. Even though my family is wealthy and I have a safe place to go, what would you do in my place? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I think you now realize that playing family with humans is a lot different than it is with dolls. Didn't anyone tell you that a marriage between a 19-year-old and a 31-year-old is absurd? Were you running away from a bad situation? Comment 2. You're at home, pregnant. You have no idea where your husband is. It's 3 a.m. and you don't want to call him because you don't want to seem controlling? Sounds like you're the one being controlled. Now for the update. 2 weeks went by since I confronted my husband about the messages from the younger woman. Not gonna lie, I spent most of that time avoiding deeper conversations with him. I'm just trying to focus on preparing for our baby and keep my sanity. He returned to sleeping in our bed, but it was like we were in different time zones. He'd scroll on his phone late into the night, not even trying to pretend he was interested in anything I had to say. It's like he was more into his phone than me. I planned a baby shower, hoping it would bring back some normalcy and a little happiness into our lives. I invited close family and friends, including my husband, who surprisingly agreed to help. I thought maybe we'd get a chance to reconnect. During the planning, I noticed he often stepped out to take calls, which he said were work-related. I didn't push it, just hoping it wasn't more of the same crap with the other girl. The baby shower day rolled around, and I was so excited. The atmosphere was really festive with decorations and gifts everywhere. Everyone seemed happy, and I just wanted to feel that way too. But my husband, man, he seemed unusually distracted. He was checking his phone all the time, like he was expecting some emergency. As guests started to arrive, he made a quick exit, claiming he needed to pick something up. I wasn't exactly buying it, but my sister showed up with her kids, and I didn't want to ruin the mood. Then my sister casually mentioned seeing him at a bar late the previous night. I just brushed it off, focusing on enjoying the shower with my guests. But inside, I was like, here we go again. Later on, during the shower, a friend mentioned how she had seen my husband with the younger woman at a local diner. That was a punch to the gut. I tried to play it cool, but my heart was racing. After the shower, I confronted him about the diner sighting. He denied being there, claiming it was just a misunderstanding. I was so frustrated I could scream. So I decided to check his location history on our shared phone plan. You know, the one that shows where you've been? The next day, while he was at work, I discovered he'd been going to that diner frequently over the last month. I was floored. That weekend, I planned a dinner with my family and invited him, hoping it would catch him off guard. I figured if we were with my family, he'd be less likely to lie. During dinner, I noticed him texting under the table, his face all tense. My brother jokingly asked about our baby plans, and it was my chance. I asked my husband directly. He just clammed up, avoiding eye contact like a pro. Then he tried to change the subject. After dinner, I followed him to the living room, insisting we talk. He hesitated, like a deer in headlights, then finally admitted to seeing the younger woman, but he claimed it was just a friendship. I felt like the walls were closing in on me. Then he revealed he had been paying for her college tuition, saying it was just out of kindness. What a load of crap. We argued about trust and boundaries, and he was adamant it was innocent. The next morning, I decided to go to the diner myself. I needed to gather my thoughts. When I arrived, my heart was racing. I spotted him sitting there with the younger woman, their laughter echoing in my ears. I took a deep breath, walked up, and interrupted their conversation. The younger woman looked startled, and my husband was just stammering in surprise. I calmly asked him why he hadn't been honest about their meetings. He fumbled for an explanation, but the younger woman stood up, defending him, of course. She told us both that their relationship was over and that she wouldn't tolerate any more deceit. She left the diner, and I felt like I'd just watched a movie where I was the star of the drama. A week later, I contacted a family lawyer to discuss my options. I planned to talk to my family about everything, preparing for any fallout. I'm just done with all the lies, the cheating, and the pretending like everything's okay. My focus is on my child and living my own life. Edit. I want to clarify that my husband and I had been together for 5 years before our marriage. We had discussed starting a family, so this unexpected behavior was a shock. The younger woman is in her early 20s. My husband is 31. I am not ready to consider divorce, but will do what is best for my child. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.